It's Wednesday, November 14th, and I'm your host, Paula Hersey. On today's show, we have an election wrap-up from the town clerk's office and learn more about the Cape and Vineyard Electric Cooperative and how it helps municipalities adopt renewable energy solutions. Let's start with some news you can use. Informational meetings about the future of Cape Cod Canal automobile bridges are being held next month by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Each meeting will begin with an open house from 6 to 6:30 p.m. with information posters and Army Corps staff on hand to answer questions about the Major Rehabilitation Evaluation Report. A presentation will begin at 6:30 p.m. followed by the opportunity for public comment. The meetings are scheduled for the following location, dates, and dates. December 4th at Bourne High School Auditorium, December 5th at Plymouth South High School Performing Arts Center, December 6th at Nantucket High School Auditorium, December 11th at Martha's Vineyard Regional High School Performing Arts Center, and December 12th at Barnstable High School Performing Arts Center. Stay tuned to Channel 18 next week for more information when we'll have a transportation manager, Stephen Tupper from the Cape Cod Commission, here in studio for an interview. Even though the election was a week ago, Ann Quirk, town clerk, is still hard at work with some final tasks before the results are sent to the state and certified. We found her in her office surrounded by ballots as she was tallying write-in votes.
We're here with Ann Quirk, town clerk, to wrap up the election. There's lots of things that the town clerk does after everyone's casted their vote. Ann, welcome, and boy, oh boy, you still have work to do, don't you?
We sure do. This is the wrap-up, but it's a long-term wrap-up. We're still working on write-in ballots. We're working on those folks who had to do a provisional ballot, which means that we didn't have them on our voter list, but we wanted to find out if they really should have been on our voter list. And then we still have all those people who are overseas, but they're United States citizens that are living and working overseas, and we have to wait for their ballots to come back.
So let's talk a little bit about the numbers first, and then we'll talk about the work that you're doing now. So how did this particular election stack up against, say, a presidential election? It's a midterm.
Midterm, this is probably the best midterm we've ever had. We're at 65.6% of my voters. 2 years ago, at the presidential, we were at 77%, and 4 years before that, we were 77%. So it's a big difference. More people come out for a presidential, which is wonderful. You want everyone to come out. Normally, we do about a 50% around a midterm.
So this was a significant rise, something unprecedented, as people are saying. So when you're at the polls, you had lots of poll workers. It was a long day for them, wasn't it?
Oh, gosh, it is a long day. But they are great people to do it, and that's why I'm always looking for poll workers, because it is a long day. They start at 5:30 in the morning, and they don't finish until all this work is done and put away.
Yes, very long day. So let's talk about the work that you're doing now. So most folks think, like I said, they cast their ballot and it's out of their mind, the race is won. But really, literally, there's a whole lot of things that you, as town clerk, still have to do to make sure that this is a certified election. Tell us about some of those things.
Well, absolutely. We want to be above board at all times. We want to make sure that our numbers are exact, because we don't want anything, and none of us want anything to happen like that. So what we have to do is, when people do write-ins, we have to look at them. And if it's a significant write-in for, say, they wanted to write in someone else's name on running for governor, and if there were enough people that wrote that same name in, then it's counted. And all of this information has to go in through the state, too. So I have another form I have to do for the state. But unfortunately, a lot of people use this as a venue for them to, I'm going to say the word ridicule. And maybe that's not the right word. But I look at these and I have people who are voting for Santa Claus, the Easter Bunny, Mickey Mouse, Captain Hook, Donald Duck is on some of them. That's a waste. That really is a waste of their time and their vote. Your vote is your voice. If you really have a problem with the people who are running and you don't want to write a letter to the editor, or you think you know someone that could do a better job, get behind them, get them to run for office, or leave it blank. Just leaving it blank tells a story in itself.
Right, those blank votes, again, we call them protest votes, but when you're writing nonsensical things into those write-ins, that takes time to go through. It seems like, we're all adults here, right?
Exactly, exactly. And why not utilize your vote to let people know how you feel? Putting Santa Claus down or Mickey Mouse is not going to do it.
So you're tabulating all the write-in votes and getting through those nonsensical names that are in some of those writing. What are some of the other duties as town clerk that you do after the election?
Well, as I said, people who were given a provisional ballot, perhaps they went to the Registry of Motor Vehicles, and at that time they believe that they signed up to vote at the same time, because you can do that. It's called the motor voter law. And absolutely that can happen. But if you're not on my voter list, there was a breakdown somewhere, either at the registry or through us here. Somehow that got missed. So we have to send forms through to the Registry of Motor Vehicles and back into the state to try and track you and find out what happened and whether or not we can count your ballot. And that's part of what we're doing right now. Also, what we're doing is we're waiting for those overseas ballots. And then, as I said, there's a long form that has to be done in the computer for the state, and I have to certify the votes that I'm sending through to the state. So I want everything exactly correct.
Right. It is so important with talk of, election fraud and things like that. That doesn't happen. The town clerks throughout our Commonwealth are very dedicated. Your work, obviously, I've seen you've been working now for months on this election, from the census right down through this. So what's your best advice for folks out there that, number one, let's get those censuses in, right?
Absolutely. And if you ever have a question, just call us. We can look it up really quickly and find out whether or not you're a voter. If you've been to the Registry of Motor Vehicles and you believe you signed off to actually have your voter registration changed to the town of Barnstable, give us a call. Because if you don't get a letter from us, you weren't updated. And we have to send those letters out after we update you. So it's usually within about 10 days to 2 weeks.
Excellent. Great advice for folks. Anything else you want to tell our viewers out there about this election?
I am so happy that we had this kind of turnout. I was pushing for 65%, and we're there. We're 65.6%, and I'm really excited that there were enough people who really cared about this election to get out there and vote. So keep up the good work.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Ann.
Cape and Vineyard Electric Cooperative was created to provide the municipalities of Cape Cod and Martha's Vineyard a way to work together to integrate clean, renewable energy as part of a more sustainable Cape Cod and Martha's Vineyard. Cape and Vineyard Electric Cooperative works in concert with the ongoing mission of the Cape Light Compact to advance the interests of electricity consumers throughout Cape Cod and Martha's Vineyard. Liz Argo from CVEC and Austin Brandt from Cape Light Compact joined us in studio to talk about a cool new pilot program for energy battery storage. How does energy and coastal resiliency go hand in hand? Well, today with me, I have Liz Argo from the Cape and Vineyard Electric Cooperative.
Excellent.
Excellent, all right. And Austin Brandt, you're a planner, power plant supply manager for the Cape Light Compact. You guys have I guess a relationship will be the best. And resiliency and electricity go hand in hand. So let's start first with who you are and what do you do at your organization?
So the Cape and Vineyard Electric Cooperative, also well known as CVEC, we are a sister organization to the Cape Light Compact. And we were founded back in 2007 with a mission to bring forward renewable energy and services as well. So that's what we focused on. And we've done very well. We're just about to announce that we have saved our participants, which are governmental entities, just under $12 million since our inception. And we really have to thank the Cape Light Compact because it was their thinking that brought us forward.
So just a little bit on that, the Cape Light Compact, along with the town of Barnstable and Barnstable County, helped establish CVEC around 2007. And the original purpose was, as part of Cape Light Compact's mission, we want to support renewable energy development. So we wanted to help found an organization that could build, own, and maintain solar PV projects. And the Cape Light Compact, which runs a power supply program, the original idea is we would buy power from those projects to serve our customers, help stabilize rates, support renewable energy. Now, just after we founded it, of course, the legislature passed a net metering law, which ended up being a better financial opportunity for the towns, and therefore the mission changed a little bit. But it's exciting to see that in just over 10 years, CVEC has really come a long way in developing renewable energy on the Cape and saving towns, as Liz just mentioned, a lot of money.
Almost $12 million.
Yeah, and
Saving the towns $12 million.
towns, school districts, fire districts, and the counties.
Right.
Barnstable County and Dukes County are also participants in the programs.
So let's talk a little bit about some of these programs that you're doing. There's one specific that we'll get into a little bit of a deep dive, but what are some of these renewable energy programs that are out there?
For the Cape and Vineyard Electric Cooperative, as Austin mentioned, it's bringing forward PV installations, photovoltaic installations. So you may see when you're leaving Hyannis Airport a very large solar installation off to the side. That's a CVEC project. And then a lot of the capped landfill projects are ours. We've got now 13 megawatts on the capped landfills. And then there are roof mounts, other ground mounts that are not specifically on capped landfills. So that's been our real focus, is bringing forward PV development. And I should also mention that along with the savings is the contribution to reducing greenhouse gases from all of those projects. It's 60 million pounds of carbon equivalent reduction, which is like 6,000 cars off the road. So, but that was our mission, and we are now expanding our mission. And as you may know, we were recipients for a grant to put in a battery it's backup energy storage at the DY Regional School District's high school, which serves as our emergency shelter.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about BESS, which I love the acronym.
Battery Energy Storage
Systems. So the school has this project. Basically, it's a pilot project.
It is. It was a grant that's called the Clean Community Energy Resiliency Initiative.
Okay.
And through that grant, we are supposed to bring more resilience to our emergency shelters. Okay. So the grant was appropriate and awarded to emergency shelters. Okay. And DY High School is an important one because it serves a central location on the Cape, but it also is the kitchen that supplies all of the food to all the other shelters.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. And they have a lot of people going through there.
And they do have, I think, 2 backup diesel gens on site that they use in storms when there are power outages. But we wanted to add the resiliency piece in because they have 2 large PV systems on site that are actually producing a lot of clean energy. And so this battery fit nicely, or will fit nicely with those systems to be hopefully charged from renewable energy generated by those systems. And that renewable energy can be used in the event of an outage via the battery, instead of relying solely on diesel generators for that power. And when it's not being used, the battery can provide other services, such as participating in demand response programs that the Cape Light Compact has planned for as part of our next 3-year plan. This battery is going to be 250 kW. It's going to be able to kilowatts, excuse me. It's going to be able to provide at least 4 hours of backup power. And these storm events are relatively infrequent, and so instead of having that battery just sit there the rest of the year and not really do anything, we're going to look for ways that it can help stabilize the grid through demand response, provide additional services and revenue to DY Regional School District.
Right, and I'm going to just back up a little bit because people are like, well, it has two diesel generators, so why do you need this? And your comment before the show was
Lessons learned.
lessons learned,
Yeah,
right?
unfortunately, Hurricane Sandy, it brought forward a big lesson in that when the diesel generators run out of fuel, if these are prolonged events with the grid down, you can't pump the fuel to fill the diesel generators. So the concept of using our renewables in conjunction with the diesel generators just extend the whole period of being able to have no outside power coming in is a good solution.
Right.
So
I thought that was really interesting. You know, you just kind of not think about stuff like
Right.
that, and then when it happens, you're like, well, what are we going to do? But
Yeah.
this particular application would help facilitate at least energy still going through that shelter.
Exactly.
Let's talk a little bit. As a pilot program, you have to kind of figure out whether this is going to pay for itself. So you mentioned the word revenue, and you know everybody in municipal government, their ears perk up, right? Revenue, where's it coming from?
yes.
You know, is it a cost savings? So let's talk about that a little bit. How does revenue fit into this application?
Well, there is a benefit from the demand response activity, being available as a power supply to respond to demand response, has an award. So we are hoping to take advantage of that, cost it out, see what the expenses of running the battery are. So frankly, right now we are in the midst of a very extensive financial analysis to determine what our award might be for providing power during when it's needed.
Right.
And so there are partners that CVEC is working with to understand that market. And actually, I believe there are 2 markets that are evolving that are specific to demand response right now. I think it's great that it started at the federal government, and then our state in particular is doing such a great job on getting the signals and knowing how to turn us around from just power's everywhere, keep using it, to
Right.
understanding how to back down on your power and how to levelize it. So if a bunch of fossil fuel plants can be avoided by using your renewables, that's terrific.
Right.
So that's sort of in a nutshell, but this is the expert. So
Another opportunity for savings for DY schools is their load is so large that they have demand charges on their electric bill. And demand charges are charges that account for or are based on how much you use at any given moment. Your peak load is what it's called. And so to the extent that the battery can operate to shave that peak load potentially, if that works with other market opportunities for the battery, if that's not in conflict with that, that will be a direct electric bill savings for DY regional schools.
Right. So with this like new application, so how did you kind of you've gotten the grant, and where are you in this process right now? It's not up and running, obviously. So back us up a little bit. You get the grant. What happened?
and we got the grant, believe it or not, in 2014.
Okay.
So it has taken this long to sort out how the state wanted us to procure a vendor to build and operate the battery. We finally came to a decision with the state, went through with that kind of procurement process, and we had 4 excellent responses to our proposal for a developer. And we are now reviewing those proposals. And as I say, that very complex financial analysis is part of that. So each of the vendors supplied us with financial analysis. And we also have outside parties that are doing a financial analysis. So we will be interviewing some vendors next week. We're hoping to make a decision by December 4th. But if we can't, because we have to have our entire CVEC board approve this. It's a big decision. So if we don't get there, we have the ability to push that contract award date out. But we are hoping to make the award if we don't make it in December, first of the year. And then the schedule for most of the vendors, if we choose to go forward, is a year. So we could see by, not this winter, but by next winter, that emergency shelter has the ability to run using the PV and the battery.
That's amazing. I think part of it too, when you talk about your board, it's so new and so complex that this really literally takes a lot of learning time for your board members, I would imagine,
It
right?
does, yeah. But there is some, there's a project, for instance, in Hingham
Right.
that one of the vendors actually built, and it's a demo project.
Okay.
And I think that will help too. We can visit that. And all of the vendors that we're looking at have similar projects up and running. So it's not like we're inventing the wheel.
Right.
And we also hired a project manager who helped put in a battery system out in Sterling, Massachusetts, that some people may have heard of.
Okay, excellent.
The good news is Liz, as part of the review team, has a few board members on that team that have been more involved in this process. I'm one of them.
Okay.
Yarmouth's representative, a couple others have really been involved in the process to help get the rest of the board on board with the project, so to speak.
Right, or
So
up to speed with
up
the
to speed
technology
and
and
educated and have that involvement. So
Right.
that's been a good aspect of this grant project.
right. And when we talk really about the resiliency now, so it's obviously a green project. Battery storage could help power a shelter should there be an extended period of time for a storm. What does this actually mean for the rest of the Cape if, and we say if because it's a pilot program, we don't know whether the revenue is going to be there to do this, across the Cape. But what would that mean for the Cape if you could do more types of these projects?
Well, it would mean resilience. I think, we are facing climate events every year increase in not only the visits by storms, but then they're so intense too. So if we can harden, if you will, our emergency responders and our facilities, meanwhile, it's kind of like we're helping on two ends. We're making ourselves more resilient, and by installing batteries with renewables, we're also backing off the need for fossil fuels and CO2, which I certainly am of the thoughts that is leading to more serious climate change events.
And the first one's always the hardest, right? And
Right.
so if we can get this done, show it to be a successful model, I think CVAC may be able to expand that, just like they've done with solar PV, take that on, help the towns do that for themselves as a service, as part of the mission of what CVAC was founded to do is provide these kind of services to the towns. So this is a first-time project for CVAC. I think there are others in the state, but it's still relatively new, and battery storage is still rapidly evolving. So if we can set this up and show this to be a sustainable model, I think it's going to be a lot easier to expand these and deploy more of these going forward with CVAC's help as applicable.
Right.
And we are doing roof mounts right now that are part of the program, ongoing program. And because of state incentives, the state is pushing battery storage now, energy storage. Doesn't have to be batteries, it can be water. But we are going to couple our next PV initiative with battery storage so that it makes sense if you're doing a photovoltaic installation to put in a battery at the same time. And if of course it does raise the price, but again, you're doing these third-party developments.
Right.
So the capital is coming from a developer, and you're just going to be paying that developer a monthly fee that's a little higher, but what you get is so much greater, so
Right.
much more useful.
And then these small little microgrids across
Yeah.
the Cape, which is
Yeah.
just phenomenal. That idea of being self-sustaining with your energy is, it's a win-win, I guess, huh?
Yeah, I believe so, and we're seeing Eversource, our utility. They are also using battery energy storage. They just announced that they're putting in a battery in Truro or Wellfleet. I forget now if it's Truro or Wellfleet.
Somewhere on the Outer Cape to
Yeah.
help
There you go.
to help with their reliability
Right.
out there in that region.
Right.
Rather
okay.
than building more infrastructure, well, it is infrastructure,
Right.
but rather than putting in more poles and wires and another substation, they're turning to battery
Interesting.
as a power provider during extreme cases and needs.
Anything else you want residents to know about this program?
I would like to thank the Cape Light Compact for everything that they're doing, because they are an award-winning energy efficiency leader, and And it's from their vision that the Cape and Vineyard Electric Cooperative exists. And I'm also, I mean, we're doing great things, thanks to the Cape Light Compact.
Well, thanks to CVAC, and you know, we invested a little bit in the Cape and Vineyard
Yeah.
Electric Cooperative, but I think the returns on our investment through CVAC have been huge to the towns, and so we're really excited to see, you know, 11 years down the road, how much CVAC has brought back to the towns
Right.
after starting in 2007.
Yeah, basically about $1 million a year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
really,
Well
and they're
done.
piling up.
Well done
And
to both of you.
It's going up every year too. So
Right.
next year I'll come back and say, well, we just hit 50 million.
Right, that would be fantastic. Thank you both for coming in. It's a complex topic. It's a pilot project, but the actual benefits to resiliency and to Cape Cod as a whole, exciting things on the horizon.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Here's a look at the community calendar. Get your stretch on and flex the stress off with a free yoga class at Centerville Library on November 15th at noon with Bettina Brown from Centerville Yoga and Wellness Center. Beginners are encouraged and all levels are welcome. A yoga mat is necessary. Water and a blanket are recommended. This class meets each month on the first and third Thursdays. Class is held in the Coyle Community Room of the library. Comments, suggestions, accolades? Connect with us on Facebook and Instagram, email us, or send us an old-fashioned note by carrier pigeon. Channel 18 works for you. I'm Paula Hersey, and thank you for watching Barnstable Today.